New population counts from the 2020 census could upend the usual balance of power in national politics. But a smart bit of news analysis this week from the New York Times correspondent Nate Cohn argues that increasing voter diversity might not be as much of a help to Democrats or even a threat to Republicans as either side thought. Joining me now to break this down is Fernand Amandi, MSNBC political analyst, Democratic pollster, and host of the Strange Days podcast. Fernand, very happy to have you here. I have so many questions about this. One of the things that I found most striking is that the voting electorate got more diverse. Voters of color increased. White voters who typically vote Republican decreased. Yet that doesn't help Democrats. Why?
Well, Tiffany, in a nutshell, although the Democrats continue to win the non-black, non-white vote by significant margins, and we're talking here, of course, about Hispanic voters, Asian American voters, and others, they're not quite at those overwhelming margins that they need to do so to win states, for example, like Texas, like Florida. So I think that is what is contributing. The Republicans, as inexplicable as it may sometimes think, given that they are the anti-immigrant, the most xenophobic of American parties that we see today, they still are doing a decent job managing the margins of these electorates in some of these key battleground states.
Right.
So that factor, coupled with also, we don't often necessarily see those communities of color and those voters from the diverse backgrounds necessarily voting at the turnout percentage that they need to. That is what's leading to this phenomenon.
Well, I want you to take a listen because the people to the right of us have been warning about this white replacement theory. Take a listen to Tuckums from his warning to his viewers.
Now, I know that the left and all the little gatekeepers on Twitter become literally hysterical if you use the term replacement, if you suggest that the Democratic Party is trying to replace the current electorate, the voters now casting ballots, with new people, more obedient voters from the third world. But they become hysterical because that's what's happening, actually. Let's just say it. That's true.
Let's just say it. Tuckums is crazy. He's obviously wrong. But Fernand, what's your exactly? What's your response to that?
Let me wipe the stink off of that because that polluting racist talk is just stinking it up here in the Amandi household.
It's so insanity. It's insanity. But honestly, what's your response? Because look, I think something that I found really interesting about this is you do need white voters to win. And I think there are so many people, particularly disenfranchised white voters, whose interest aligns with so many communities of color, but there are some white voters who still vote against their own self-interest. So as a pollster, how do you address these things? How do you appeal to one base while not alienating another?
Well, Tiffany, first let's look at the facts and just talk about why Tuckums is 100% wrong. If Joe Biden had not improved his performance with white voters in 2020 versus what Hillary Clinton had done in 2016, he would not be the president of the United States today. Democracy, American democracy, would not have been saved. So I think you lay it out correctly. The Democrats, if they want to maximize their advantage on issues and at the ballot box, they have to stop this idea of choosing between one set of voters and the other. The best Democratic message is one that appeals to the electorate at large. Now, that doesn't necessarily also mean it needs to be a similar message. We know that some communities respond differently to some issues over others. But again, we need to see more Democratic engagement, yes, with white voters, but also with Hispanic voters, African American voters, Asian voters across the spectrum. And if they start doing those things, I think they can be successful. What are some examples of this? States like California. A lot of people forget because it seems like ancient history wasn't that long ago. In the 70s and in the 80s, even in the early 90s, California was a purple state. It was kind of on the one side or the other, but we saw increasing diversity there with gains with Hispanic voters, Asian voters, of course, the African-American electorate that was already there, plus white voters shifting their allegiance from the Republican Party to the Democratic Party made it the strongest of the blue states. And I think you're starting to see the possibility of that phenomenon take place in new states We saw it in Arizona this last cycle. Georgia, of course, the same phenomenon. So I think if the Democrats think about this idea, not choosing but engaging the electorate, they can move along on the subject.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And, you know, I think this is why we're seeing so many of these voter suppression bills come in, because California was a microcosm and cast a wide net of influence on what's happening across the country. So thank you, Fernand, for breaking it down for us. You'll have to come back very soon.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.